Typically, when you think of a software engineer, you just think of a male. My interest in technology really started when I was a teenager, and I think it was from seeing those women on TV, the cool hacker girl that, knows how to use computers really well. And I wondered if someday that could be me. My name is Victoria Jordan, and I knew I wanted to go into tech and pursue a career in STEM. One of the main reasons I fell in love with coding is the creativity that it allows me to express. It can be really difficult for young women to not only decide to pursue computer science, but also to stay in it. When it's a room full of women talking about code and talking about their ideas and their inspiration, it feels so powerful. I first heard of CodePath, that they offer free computer science courses to anyone, regardless of background. What CodePath gave me was the tools to get my dream internship here in Seattle. When companies like Comcast invest in programs like CodePath, it has the ability to change people's lives. It certainly has changed mine. I'm about to graduate in December. I have big dreams for the future.
Welcome back to our Civic Cocktail for April, our Youth Council Kickoff. I am anxious to have our 4 members of the leadership team to introduce themselves to you before we begin. So I'm going to ask each of them to take about a couple of minutes to talk about who they are and what they're already doing civically. And I'm going to ask Kellen to go first since he's our remote person, and then we'll follow it with Brook, Kellyanna, and Chirag.
Hi there, my name is Kellen Hoard. I am currently away in the other Washington. I'm at DC at George Washington University. Really, the way I got involved with all this, I started out in kind of the campaign world, first as an intern and then as a field director, and then as a campaign manager in state and local campaigns. From there, I really got involved with the Washington State Legislative Youth Advisory Council, which is codified in state law as the official youth advisory body to the state legislature. Got involved with the state PTA and other nonprofits as well. Now I am a board member for Washington Conservation Action. I'm also an advocate for student journalism and student free press in state legislatures across the country, as well as a free expression leadership fellow at PEN America. Also, in my free time, I am a coin collector, and I've been doing that for many years. So that's kind of the fun fact about myself.
That's cool, Kellen. Brook.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here tonight. I'm Brook Roberts. I'm born and raised in Edmonds, proud resident of Edmonds. Grew up in Edmonds, started my service to the city as a member on the Edmonds Youth Commission, which essentially advises the administration and legislative branches of the city on policies relating to youth. And that ultimately led me to pursuing the student representative position on the Edmonds City Council. Did that for 2 terms. Huge supporter of the implementation of ranked choice voting in Edmonds and breaking down barriers of access to local government, explaining how local government works to the layperson and how to effectively use local government to one's advantage. And that led me to, after high school, pursued a career with Chipotle Mexican Grill, became a general manager, and then realized that that really wasn't what I wanted to do in life, and I wanted more out of life. So I'm now currently working as an EMT. I guess between that time of my career change, I served on the Edmonds Salary Commission, which essentially sets the salaries of Edmonds' elected officials, council, and the mayor. And so we really worked on creating a more equitable pay scale for the people that dedicate so much of their lives to serving the community and representing them with big decisions. So now currently working as an EMT for American Medical Response. We do the 911 calls in Seattle and East King County, pursuing a Bachelor's of Science in Emergency Medical Services Administration at Eastern Oregon University on a part-time schedule. And currently I'm a board member on the Edmonds Waterfront Center, as well as the second vice chair of the 21st Legislative District Democrats and a PCO for them as well. Hugely interested in building resilient communities that can work through divide at all levels. Edmonds has a history of it, and I'm just trying to do my part in engaging more people in local government to really bring more perspectives to the table and just show that we can all sit down and have a conversation, work through our differences. So happy to be here tonight, and yeah, thank you all.
Thank you, Brooke.
Can everybody hear me? Okay, good. My name is Kellyanna Brooking. I'm a sophomore in high school. I live in Tri-Cities. I am host of A Few Words, which is my podcast. I made A Few Words because I like to connect with people from all different walks of life, different political views, different careers, different interests, different grades, ages, anything. I think that oftentimes young people are told that they're too young to be involved in politics, too young to have a voice, too young to speak out. I'm here to change that, hopefully. I really like having conversations, and I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. After high school, I plan on being involved in broadcast journalism and hopefully running a nonprofit or helping with something involving special education in schools.
Awesome. Well, nice to meet you guys all. Thank you so much for the City Club and Alicia for having us. My name is Chirag, Vedullapalli. I guess I'm the oldest one on the youth council, but I just graduated from the University of Washington just about a year ago, and my day job now that I'm out in the real world, is I work for Congressman Adam Smith. I'm his campaign person, his political director. So I do campaign work for work, and then in my free time, I've been trying to use some of the insights I've learned on the campaign to better create opportunities and also raise awareness about ways for young people to get involved, and specifically at the precinct level as precinct committee officers, also known as PCOs.
That's all?
That's all.
Well, you can see why when we put this together, and I will say, I want to say thank you to the four of you, because I pretty much just said, hey, I found you online, I want you to do this. And except for Brooke. Brooke and I are friends. But when we're putting this together, and the first thing people would say to me is, okay, what are the objectives? What are they going to do? What do you want them to do? And I said, we're going to do this a little bit backwards. Meaning, I think one of the issues has been when trying to create groups like this is that you have the older folks say, this is what you need to be doing. But quickly, as I listened to each of you separately, I was like, they need to tell us what to do, because you're already doing the things that we wouldn't even thought of doing. So we're already inspired by the work that you've done individually and look forward to seeing what you're going to do collectively. So that being said, the first question I am going to ask you is to put you a little bit on the spot. Is you personally, what would you like to see come out of this youth council? And I will start with Kellyanna. I'm going to pick on you first.
Okay. Good question. What I would like to see out of this youth council is actual conversations happening. I think that oftentimes people fall into the trap of echo chambers, whether that be politics or anything, and conversations aren't had. And instead of conversations, people just make assumptions about Republicans, Democrats, this, that, and conversations can go such a long way. So I think no matter what your political views are, no matter how old you are, actual conversations should be had.
Can I add something? Awesome. I totally agree. And I think that when we were, planning for this event, I was thinking about why is the youth council so important? And I think that young people have a right in having a voice and a seat at the table for anything that will affect them in the future. And a lot of the issues that we're talking about and that policymakers are working on will affect them. And they're not just the future generation of young leaders. They're already leading today. So it's important to make sure we hear what they have to say. And I think showing the youth council, I would love to see opportunities for them and, what is the next step to getting involved as a PCO?
Yeah.
For me, I think serving as a platform for youth to have the discussions, but also have, legislators put their money where their mouth is in the audience and really listening to our discussions instead of just saying, oh yeah, we need more youth involvement, actually showing up and being there to listen to what we have to say about what's going on. That's primarily my big thing.
Kellen?
Yeah, for me, I think we've had this conversation, right? I think, this is a annual conversation. It's a more than annual conversation. Of course, we need youth involved in civics and in civil society. This conversation has been had forever. And so for me, where this youth council goes beyond that is actually giving an opportunity for those in the audience, hopefully, to get a sense of how they can structurally engage youth and go beyond just talking and saying, hey, it's important that we speak to youth. It's important that we hear from youth, but actually saying, how do we structurally, build this out so that we are consistently hearing from young people, so that what we're hearing from young people is turned into action or into implementation, so that what we're hearing from young people and that we're engaging young people is actually not only their, discrete opinions, but how those opinions are going to implicate the work that my organization is doing or that I'm doing as a citizen or a Washingtonian. So really, I'm hoping that what this council provides is that sort of platform where we can speak not just about the importance of youth engagement, but how do we actually do this for the long term, sustainably, and engaging young people in more than an advisory manner, but even a decision making and executive manner.
No, absolutely. And actually, one of the things, oh, round of applause, please. Uh, One of the things that we are doing in launching this youth council too is that collectively the council will have a say on our board of directors, and so that was one of the things we wanted to make sure that we were not being performative in doing something like this, but to really make sure that we are infusing your thoughts and ideas as we continue to build CityClub through all of its programming. So next question, I want to start with Chirag on this one. And you guys have already kind of alluded to this a little bit, which is we use the term civic engagement very loosely. And I think we all have different ideas of what that means. So starting with Chirag, I'm curious to know from your perspective, what does civic engagement look like for someone like you, for a young person, a young adult in this community?
Totally. I'd say that, the common perception is that civic engagement means that you have to vote. And obviously that's, super important. And coming out of the last election in 2023, basically nobody voted. It was pretty embarrassing as a state of Washington. So I think that voting is the number one thing that we want people to be civically engaged in, and being an educated voter. But there's also so many ways that once you vote, there's a next step of how you can be even more civically engaged, to engage your friends, your families, your neighbors, and everyone in your community. And I'm going to take the opportunity to talk about the project. So,
absolutely.
This project I've been working on ever since the last election. We had the pretty embarrassing voting numbers. So I was thinking, how do we actually get more young people to vote? They voted the least of any age bracket, just 16% in the state of Washington in 2023. And we're basically getting outvoted by our parents, our grandparents, and everyone else that's older than us. And it's really unfortunate because, we have just as much a stake in our future, and we should have, the ability to voice our opinions and make a difference in that way. So what I've been trying to use is my insights from working on campaigns to figure out, what do I wish I knew when I was in high school and in college about ways to tangibly move the needle forward and really make sure my concerns are heard. And that is through the role of a PCO and precincts. So for those who don't know, I'm not sure, one thing I've learned through this project is that no one really knows what a precinct is or a PCO is, so I'll explain it really quickly. So a precinct is like a building block of our democracy. Every neighborhood is blocked into a precinct, and our whole state is made up of about 7,000 precincts, and they each have about a couple hundred to almost 1,000 registered voters. And usually there is a PCO. It's an elected position that you have to be 18 and older to be, and that person is like the connective tissue of our democracy. They are responsible for engaging their neighbors and reminding them that the ballot's in the mail. These are the things on the ballot, being able to answer questions, but also advocating for candidates they believe in. And there's a Democratic and a Republican PCO opportunity available for every precinct. And so when we started this project, we came to the realization just in King County, there is about 2,500 precincts, and more than, I think, 1,500 are empty. There is no PCO at all. And only 23 precincts have a PCO that is between the age of 18 and 24. So that's just 2.5% of the current PCO, which is really, it just shows why we're kind of in the current situation of youth feeling unengaged and unconnected to our democracy. So to solve this problem, what we've done is our amazing partners at TVW, they're the legislative broadcasting service in Olympia that does gavel-to-gavel coverage, our wonderful partners in the audience at Teach with TVW. Yes, give them a round of applause. They have been fantastic.
Like TVW.
And they're a nonpartisan nonprofit that's been really fantastic at working with us to create an educational, it's not curriculum, it's really a lesson plan that teachers, civic educators can teach in 1 hour, 1 period, 1 day, both in high school, community college, and then hopefully nonprofits will be able to use it as well to engage whatever communities that they are working in, to basically explain both what is a precinct, what is a PCO, how do you become one, as well as also allow them to read through both parties' platforms and figure out which one do they actually align with based on the issues that are there, and then also figure out how to both change systems, because if we want people to be, globally minded citizens and, civically engaged, they have to understand how our system works and how to play a meaningful role in moving whatever issue they care about. This will be a way that they can tangibly move the needle forward. So that's the goal.
So that was a good answer. So being civically engaged when you can't vote yet is hard, so I'll speak to that demographic because I'm 16. So I think being civically engaged first starts with thinking. It kind of sounds simple, but not everybody has to think the same as me or as each other, but I think it's important in general to just think. And I think a good way to start being involved in your community locally would be to go to school board meetings. I think that's a great way to be civically engaged when you can't vote. Go to school board meetings, have those difficult conversations. If you see somebody on social media posting at your high school that has different views than you, it seems scary, but have a conversation, because as I said before, conversations can go a long way, and you'll truly learn a lot by doing that. So as I said, go to school board meetings, watch the news, try to find a news source that doesn't necessarily lean one way. A great one that I like to watch is News Nation, The Hill, because they don't lean super left, they don't lean super right. They just kind of give you middle ground about what's going on so you can form your own opinion. Just don't be afraid to speak out about your opinions. As I said before, young people often get told that they're too young to have a voice, but using your social media can be a great way to go about that. Do Instagram Lives, do Instagram Reels, post on your story. Don't be afraid to have conversations, and don't be afraid to speak out.
So for me, I think civic engagement starts with an understanding of how our government works from the local, state, and federal levels. And a lot of that, in my opinion, is on the schools to properly teach and really engage our youth with. And so, one of my future hopes is that our school districts, our community colleges where students participate in Running Start, really build curriculum that truly speaks to youth and how they can, and explains the mechanisms of government, who's responsible for what. And beyond that, it's taking a liking to that understanding, and I guess at the larger level, civic engagement to me is looking beyond the two sides and looking for what the facts really are, and having like Kellyanna said, having the hard discussions with other people even when they may be uncomfortable. This is a really good question. Give me a second. I guess just looking beyond the mainstream opinions to form your own opinion, and having those hard conversations, being proactive about getting involved in your community. I think each and every one of us has a responsibility to leave the world better than how we found it, and a great way to do that is by getting involved at any level. I think primarily up to those two, and just staying engaged with voting and building relationships with legislators in your community. After all, legislators aren't on some pedestal. They're normal people just like us, and they should be treated as such. And I think just doing whatever you can to remove that barrier and establish communication with someone local or someone at the state level is a great start.
So, on my end of it here, I just kind of like to take the conversation larger than just, kind of strictly civic engagement. I look kind of more at youth engagement. And for me, if you're a leader today in the public sector, in the nonprofit sector, in the private sector, substantive youth engagement in your institution is no longer just like a nice bonus to have. It's a necessity, and you're actually mitigating risk and seizing opportunity if you're able to engage youth. If you don't have someone under 25 giving input regularly to you or to your team, you're not just at square one, you're actually falling behind competition at this point. And so, I mean, why is it so important? It's not just that you're getting some kind of like vague youth perspective. You're getting wholesale different systems of thinking by young people. And this kind of fundamentally different approach is critical to mitigating that organizational risk and taking advantage of those hidden opportunities. So, like, let's look at some of these risks, right? So, if you're in government, if you're an elected official or a career employee, what you're looking at is honestly, with no youth engagement, you're looking at inferior policy that does not capture the needs of constituents as well as it could. You're looking at poor stakeholder buy-in when you don't have young people engaged in this advisory decision-making process as you craft a bill or as you roll out a regulation. This is why the Legislative Youth Advisory Council was made, was because legislators were writing policy about youth that engaged no youth actually in that creation process, and the policy was just worse than it could have been. So you're running that risk. If you're in a nonprofit leadership role, you have a risk of demographic blindness. A lot of nonprofits, especially their boards, tend to be wealthier, older white people on the I-5 corridor. This is in Washington, at least. And you are running the risk, if you don't have young people engaged, of missing a major demographic that's going to actually boost your nonprofit's ability to fulfill its mission, and is going to actually allow you to fulfill that mission better. If you're in the private sector, I mean, you are at great risk now from internal workforce dynamics. We know that employees put pressure on their executives and their managers now about not only social issues, but about work issues, and workers are becoming more empowered. So if you don't have a good gauge on the younger workforce within your corporation, you're going to run into risks there, and external problems from the public, where what we see increasingly is that consumers care. This is what we're talking about with stakeholder capitalism. Consumers are going to put pressure on corporations, and you need a touchstone with that, and that's going to be a young person who has that system of thinking. And there's also, affirmative opportunities. If you're in that government role, you can get better policy output. You can get advocacy support. You'll have young people testifying for your bill in legislature and city council hearings or in school board meetings. If you're a nonprofit, they will be able to help you identify short and long-term opportunities to sustainably grow and continue your mission, so that your nonprofit doesn't die out or actually end up losing funds or end up completing its mission. They're actually going to have young people engaged in continuing those goals. If you're in a private sector business, what young people can do is help define your goals internally and then articulate them externally in a way that only they know how, because again, they are thinking differently about it. It's not just that they have different life experience, they're approaching this differently. So when we look at like actionable steps for like nonprofit leaders, public sector leaders, private sector leaders, it really goes beyond just having conversations. Again, if you're in a government role of any kind, but especially if you're in an elected role, you need to be engaging young people in your campaigns. And it's very possible they want to work in campaigns. They are passionate about this, but they often don't just have the knowledge about how to cross that institutional barrier and actually get engaged in the institution of a campaign in the first place. I'd recommend looking at Senator Malka Dingra as a really good role for how she's engaged young people in her campaigns since she first got elected to state senate, because she has figured out how to maintain a sustainable youth, advisory and volunteer base. Also, you need to be building or utilizing advisory councils. If you're in the State Department of Health, if you're in Linwood City Council, if you're somewhere, you should have a youth advisory council speaking to you about their issues. It should be, 10 to 20 people. You definitely have those people available, but you're going to have to proactively reach out to them, engage them structurally in your processes, make sure that they are tuned into what's happening and giving you advice, and your policy will be better as a result. And what I say to pretty much every elected official I meet is like, you should be meeting with youth 1 to 2 times a month, having that dialogue. And that can be at school, that can be at YMCA, that can be at Washington Bus, that can be at a summer camp. It can be anywhere, but 1 to 2 times a month, you should be asking them what they want you to do, and you should be telling them what you're doing. Transcending this institutional barrier is the main thing, because often people do agree on the fundamental issues. But the question is, are they talking to each other about whether they agree, and are they mutually amplifying each other's work? And the answer is usually no. And so how do we do this? Go proactively engage in dialogue with them. That is a phenomenal thing. Dave Upthegrove in King County Council has done this quite well, and I recommend you look at him as a model. On the nonprofit side, there is really no excuse in the year of our Lord 2024 not to have a young person on your board with voting power. There's just not a reason to. That's how it ended up on Washington Conservation Action, is I showed their board these risks and these opportunities. And so they implemented 2 new seats just for people under 25. There's not a reason not to have a voting seat on the board for a young person under 25 in your organization. They will help you in so many ways. And finally, on kind of the private sector side, if you are in the executive role or a managerial role or in the C-suite, you need to be hiring substantive strategic positions for young people, which are speaking to your C-suite 1 to 2 times a month in different parts of your company or firm, who are, they don't have to actually be in the C-suite, but they need to be regularly dialoguing between the C-suite, these young people, from different parts of the firm, from different processes, from different, vertical layers. And what you also need to be doing is actively recruiting. Young people really want to get engaged in Seattle area private sector firms. But what I see is that a lot of firms are just kind of abdicating their responsibility to reach out proactively to youth. You should be at their career phase in the high schools and at UW and at all these schools. You should be there proactively. You should be creating internship roles within your organization, paid internship roles that will actually not only benefit them with work experience, but will benefit you with getting the cream of the crop in future employees. And you need to be philanthropic. I mean, honestly, if you were providing scholarships to young people to go to college or to go to, different professional development things, you will gain their loyalty, you will gain their support and advice, and you will gain, new employees who are eager to engage in the mission of your private sector firm and are eager to actually work hard for you and achieve the mission of your firm. So to me, there's no question. I mean, they should be structurally involved in the work that you are doing in the public or nonprofit or private sector. And to me, that's what youth engagement looks like, is actually, again, that structural engagement, and in terms of having regular engagement across the board at the leadership level, and you can see the dividends paid every single day.
Thanks, Kellen. You guys have all hit on some very key things. So there's 3 things that's sticking out to me right now. One is, civic engagement means different things to different people. And one of the things that I think spurs that on for a person usually starts with an issue. They feel passionate about affordable housing. They feel passionate about education because maybe they're getting a lack of it from where they are. I think the second part is making sure that, youth engagement, young adult engagement is met with both financial and knowledgeable support, which is why we're looking for founding partners to help us to do that with you guys and as we grow the council. And then 3, social media. So I'm gonna start with Kellyanna on this one. And what are the pros and cons of social media as it comes to this? And I will confess, I followed Kellyanna's Twitter for a while, thinking she was like a 30-year-old woman. Because it was very mature how you were going about things. So when we were trying to put this together, one of my board members said, "Oh, what about her?" And I'm like, "She's in her 30s." He goes, "No, she's 15. What? And I say that because, again, there was a maturity level there, but I think that you have a grasp on that clearly. So I would love to hear from you first. Kind of what role do you think social media plays in all of this? And what are the pros, but also the cons? And I think we hear about the cons a lot.
Yeah.
But what are the pros?
Good question. I've been involved in politics and on social media since I was 12, so a lot of people usually do think I'm older than I am until they meet me in person. So obviously the pros, you get to speak about your opinions, and you get to stay informed easier than I think ever before because we live in an age where social media is so prevalent now, which I think is a pro, obviously, because I talk about my opinions all the time. So it's great to be able to talk about those, share them, and connect with people that I wouldn't have thought of connecting with before, because I think social media can build that bridge between different echo chambers and people you would have never thought about connecting with. On the flip side, I think cons, COVID played a big part into this. People turn into keyboard warriors and will not have conversations in real life, or they say negative things to you online that they would have never said to you in person, which I experienced that, speaking out at a time during COVID when everybody was all heightened on opinions and misinformation, so everybody got very defensive of their opinions in a negative way, where everybody started saying negative things on social media, and there was no accountability because you would have never seen that person in real life, or I guess during that time of the pandemic, everybody thought they just weren't going to see each other again, period, so everybody got all confident saying crazy things online, and even though we don't live in the COVID world anymore, people still say horrible things online, especially Twitter. you've probably seen my comments. It's absolutely insane. People get offended. It's not even being offended anymore. It's just so like stuck in their way that everybody thinks that what they're saying is important. So everybody thinks that what they're saying is the only right thing. So everybody gets all negative and hopped up on Twitter, which it's easy to get hopped up on your own juice and stuck in your own echo chamber, which you're just stuck in that negativity on social media. So you can either delete comments, but that's not really fun. So just don't really let them get to you. It's just social media. It's not real. Comments are not real. Just don't pay it any mind.
I'm constantly reminded not to feed the troll, but it's so tempting.
I do it sometimes.
What about you, Chirag?
I actually have not much to add. Everything I have to agree. When I was growing up, Instagram was just like the new thing. I didn't have any Snapchat or TikTok or anything like that, so I would have to agree with all the comments.
But I'm going to follow up with you as someone who's also working on someone's campaign this year.
Yes.
How important is social media going to be, especially in trying to up the percentages of young adults voting this time around?
No, then it's like essential because you got to go to where people are, and if people are on social media, then you got to go to that. And it's been really interesting because right now we're working on getting more summer interns to be a part of the campaign. So if you know anyone that wants a paid summer internship, we'd love to have them. But it's the only way to get to them is really on social media and letting them know what's going on. And I think what Kellyanna was talking about, just being informed. I scroll Twitter just to keep up with what's going on because it seems like it's the best way to get the most up-to-date content. So I totally agree. It's about being where people are.
Can I add something to that? Um, I think I actually disagree with my panelists here. I think that social media, of course, is very important. We've seen it, transform how young people engage with the world, and I think there's a conversation for an entirely different civic cocktail about the effects on young people of social media, mostly negative, I think. But in my opinion, I really don't think that social media is an effective way for policymakers, for nonprofit people, for private sector people to really engage young people anymore. I think what's happened is that social media has become incredibly siloed. What we see, I mean, let's go through them. Snapchat has always been for friends. It's never been a good way to reach young people from an institutional standpoint. Instagram is increasingly moving to a video-centric model that is tethered to influencers and mega corporations rather than, and before that, it was friends. Again, it really wasn't kind of localized political stuff. Twitter the algorithm has been destroyed and is typically for middle-aged people. I see fewer and fewer young people on it, and it's a worse way to spread the word about stuff now. And Facebook, that's now the 70 and up platform. How are you going to reach young people? Right now, it's not going to be social media. Even TikTok it's difficult to succeed in the algorithm and reach young people, especially in any kind of localized way, unless they're running ads there. But again, that's kind of a very specific thing. I think that social media becomes kind of a scapegoat for us as we look at how do we engage young people and civically and in our institutions. It becomes, hey, we'll just make some posts on Instagram, or hey, we'll just post something on Facebook and hope it spreads out to young people. And that's just not how I've not seen success in that model. I've tried and it has not worked. What does work is actually meeting them in person where they are. This has been my experience, is going to where they are at school or in organizations where they are, involved, extracurricularly, or is actually in building a network through, adult, your adult network and reaching their kids. It's really a matter of actually actively reaching out in person and building those relationships rather than kind of trying to do PR and advertising through social media. So as powerful as it is, as important as it is, as influential as it is in our world today, if you are a nonprofit or a public servant who's looking to actually engage youth in the work you do, social media has, for most people, limited utility. Some people have knocked it out of the park, some public figures have, but for the most part, unless you have concerted money and social media expertise behind it, I don't think it's going to work out as well as you hope it will. So I hope that's not like too much of a downer, but that's been my experience.
There's more than one way to reach people. There are some that live on social media and some that don't, which actually dovetails into coming to Brook on this. I think about the fact that you're a student, you're a young adult, you're also, working full time as an EMT. So how does social media relate to you in getting this information, and what are those other avenues that you're looking at as someone who maybe doesn't spend as much time on social media as some of us?
For sure. At this point, after the whole pandemic, I've kind of realize that social media can only do so much. It can only be used so much to inform. I've kind of gone away from having discussions on social media and kind of really tried to meet people in person, because when you're typing, when you're going at someone online, it removes the human aspect behind it. You don't realize there's another human behind the screen, and so it's so easy to get heated and emotional in an argument. And so what I've been doing with people, around Edmonds that I don't necessarily have the same views with or align with politically, I say, hey, let's go out for coffee and let's talk. Let's call this guy John. Very well known in our community, very outspoken. Him and I have stark, like a huge difference of opinions on how Edmonds should handle our affordable housing crisis. And instead of just going back and forth on email, I say, hey, let's take this off Gmail or whatever. Let's go to the coffee shop and let's talk it out. And we meet. We bring documents that support our opinions, and we talk it out. And it's really, it brings a human aspect back into things. And I think in terms of how we engage youth in this, I think for me, I bug all my friends about voting. I bug them to get involved all the time, and they don't have a problem with it. And so I think it just comes down to, again, like Kellen said, meeting youth where they are, but in person, and pushing them to engage no matter what. And like, you may be viewed as annoying sometimes, but to me that doesn't really matter. I think it's for a good cause, and I think it's just really important that we maintain that human aspect in creating these connections, and I guess in maintaining these connections and having these discussions. So.
We're going to go to audience questions in just a moment. So if you have one, get ready to line up, because we'll take about 2 or 3 of them before we wrap up. Kellen, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to touch on something Brooke just touched on, young people voting. Why aren't they? The answer that I've basically come to from talking to as many young people as I can is that they don't see any connection between their vote and policy changes that they want to see in government. But young people tend to be very issue driven. They are driven by climate change. They're driven by gun control. They're driven by education policy. They're driven by any of these other things. And so what you need to show them is that their vote will have impact in their policy area of choice. And I think at the local, state, and federal level, we've done a very poor job of doing that. Some have done it better than others, and what you see is that in those areas, young people vote more. So this is really, if you're a politician and you want young people to be engaged in voting efforts, that onus is on you to go and show what that direct A to B line, and to show them that what they are saying is actually having a difference. Because I've talked to my peers in Washington State. I'm from Kirkland. I've talked to my peers in Kirkland, and even though they have legislators who really represent their views quite well, what they see and what they envision the state legislature as is a bunch of old retired white people who don't represent them and don't understand what they're going through. And the fact of the matter is sometimes they don't. But I mean, when you are actually having these regular dialogues with young people, what you see is that voter participation goes up, and that students understand that their vote has a direct policy implication. It's not that if they vote, rent is going to be controlled. Well, we haven't seen that, but if they vote, rent is going to be controlled. If they vote, they see the Climate Commitment Act passed. And so not only sharing this, kind of A to B path with them, and explaining how these institutional processes work, because they're often very arcane and weird processes. How do you explain, the rules committee to a 17-year-old? But it's important that you do. And when you're able to explain these processes and show how their vote impacts certain areas, here's how your vote impacts appropriations in an area that you care about, you're going to see them understand much more that there's a good reason to vote, and not just go protest in the streets, that there's actually reasons to engage with those institutional processes, because that's where long-term change that they're seeking occurs. It's not on the steps of the Seattle City Council. It's actually in the chambers, and fighting for it, or organizing for candidates that they want to do, and getting involved in campaigns, or getting involved in lobbying and advocacy, or with an organization that they care about. I think that's how you answer that problem. It's a lot of work. It's hard. It will take time and money, but it's worth it, because you're going to get more representative policy.
Let's talk to the 2 youngest, I think, that are on the council. Do you feel like you're taken seriously when you're engaging when you're engaging civically, or working on someone's campaign, or talking about something political? I think there are times where someone can go, "Oh, well, you're just this age, so you're too ideological, and you don't really know what's going on." Do you? And I'm actually looking at Brook on this too, as someone who I got to know pre-high school graduation and now having to take him seriously as an adult. Yeah, so sometimes it's unintentional when people do that. But do you feel like as you start to come through this and get a little older and starting getting more involved in things, because clearly you're doing stuff that I didn't do at your age, do you feel like you're taken seriously? And then at times when you're not, how do you do it?
Yeah, so I guess in high school, while serving as student rep to the Edmond City Council, there were a lot of times where, I did show that I did side with more of the progressives on council. And in fact, we got a few emails from the public stating that, he's being exploited by the progressive council members. And all I could do is just laugh at that. So there's definitely that aspect of not being taken seriously when I express how I honestly feel without any influence and after looking at the facts. And on certain topics, again, like housing affordability, people try to minimize me, saying that, oh yeah, you're young, you still live with your parents, you don't own a home, you live in a household that rents, like your opinion isn't as valuable as mine as a homeowner. And all I could do is, it's funny and it happens, but I think all we can really do is work through it, and because we're not going to change how people think of us. All we can do is continue to speak through our actions and how we present ourselves, presenting ourselves in a professional manner when we show up to public comment and speak with different people on topics, and just voicing our thoughts through how we act, and the impact that we make. So.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. As I said earlier, I've been involved in politics since I was 12, so no, I have not been always taken seriously, and I'm still not in certain situations now. Overall, I'm not going to play the victim about it because I get a lot of opportunities like this and my platform in general. But yeah, there have been certain opportunities, and also not to play up identity politics, but I also am a female too, so that can also play into the card. I'm sure I'm a female, I'm 16 years old. There's certain opportunities that don't necessarily fall into place easily because of my age. A lot of people, living with your parents, I can't vote yet. Certain situations like that where I'm not taken seriously. And it's not just me. I know that a lot of young people, unfortunately, their voices are not taken into consideration. And I think that needs to change. On the flip side, I also think that maybe if young people with a platform want to be taken seriously, then they need to start being involved in using their voices, because you're not going to be taken seriously if you don't act serious. Especially as a woman, I can't play up the woe is me victim card because of my gender, or I'm not going to be taken seriously. If I'm constantly complaining about it, nobody's ever going to take me seriously. So, I need to play offense only and not use my age, gender, political views, anything as an excuse to not be taken seriously.
I think the nonprofit she's going to work for is this one because she's going to take my job. Did we have any audience Q&A? I think I see one back there, so go for it.
First of all, thank you so much for being part of this effort. I am just blown away by the discourse tonight, the honesty, how candid you are about your passion. This is really important to us in Seattle City Club because your voices matter, and we want to help you help our city and our region. So two-part question. One is, I'm curious, as you're talking to your family and friends, how do you enlist support for civic engagement of youth voices? And two, what is your advice to us as an organization about how we lift your voices?
Do you mind if I start?
Go for it.
Awesome. So I'm going to go back to the project, the PCO project. It really, I think, is a great way, both if people are feeling disillusioned and unconnected to politics, but also want to hold their politicians accountable. If they have if you become a PCO, you don't just have a vote, you don't just have a voice, but you also have power and agency in the system where you get to hold people accountable. You don't just, make sure your neighbors vote. You also get to vote on party leadership. You get to vote on your platform of your party. And then you also get to, when there's like a vacancy at the state level as a state rep or a state senator, you have a vote to basically recommend 3 people to your county council for appointment. And that's not a vote that everyone in your community can take. It is only for PCOs. So if you're concerned and you want to, see things actually improve, it's really about getting into the room and being involved. And as Kellyanna was saying, it's about showing up and, holding people accountable if you care about things.
So for me, I think with demonstrating the importance of engaging, there was actually, I guess it was like a repost by Cory Booker on Twitter of a comedian explaining why engagement is so important, and he said something along the lines of, okay, are you a member of the LGBT community? Are you a person of color? Do you drink the water on this earth? Do you consume goods? Do you breathe the air? Do you use fire services? Do you use the roads? Just to demonstrate how, everything's interconnected. All of our resources around here are governed by politics. Politics is essentially, the allocation of resources. And I always use that point when I'm talking with people that are like, oh, I'm not really a political person. Well, you use the roads, you drink the water, you breathe this air. So why aren't you actively doing your part in making sure that we can protect our resources that we already have? And I guess in terms of lifting youth voice, I think it comes down to, I think the PCO aspect is a great idea as a PCO myself. But I really think legislators need to put their money where their mouth is, and we need to get out the vote, especially with youth. And we need to hold legislators accountable. If they're not listening to us, and they don't deserve the youth vote, and I think we need to get more youth out there voting so we can actually have the mechanism to hold them accountable if they're not listening to us. And I think what's really great about this whole platform is that I hope legislators down the line come back to this Civic Cocktail, rewatch it, and hear us out. And I hope they look up to our council as an example for how youth may want to pursue certain, or how youth may think politically, and how to really talk to us and get to know us. So.
Yeah, that was a great answer. How to get youth involved, as you were kind of saying, a lot of people think that politics don't affect them, especially youth, because I think politics are often deemed as boring, which I don't blame people for thinking that, because politics are boring most of the time. However, there are ways that policy literally does affect young people. I just got my first car. Paying for gas sucks. That's involved with politics. Education, what goes into our schools, certain clubs not having enough funding, certain sports not having enough funding, just being a person in general, being a young person, getting first jobs, realizing that you have to pay taxes, that sucks. There's a lot of things that do directly affect you. And then also, I think a good way to get youth involved in politics is, making policy more relatable. And also, I think that social media is essential for getting young people involved. Counter argument to what was being said earlier, because social media is extremely important. I'm not disagreeing with the fact that in-person is more effective and does go a long way. Okay, not more effective, I think it does go a longer way, because in-person conversations, obviously this is more effective than me tweeting about it. However, I think social media in this day and age is essential for connecting with young people. I think that we can see, Joe Biden making, even though they're cringy, little TikToks and meeting with celebrity Olivia Rodrigo and being active on social media and keeping up with the trends versus some people on the right not doing that Is it cringy? Yes. Is it working? Absolutely. Because young people crave relatability, and when policy is deemed as boring, we need relatability involved in that. That's why when politicians are on TikTok, on Instagram, tweeting the little things, staying up to date, it makes young people want to be involved because they are already seeing the trends on social media, but then seeing somebody that could maybe change their lives, change the gas prices, change education, change everything, being relatable and keeping up with trends that they know, that's obviously going to go a long way. And then the second part to your question about how can you guys help the youth, I think that's what you said, right? Okay, how can you guys help the youth? I think that is a great question, and I'm very excited that you asked that because I think that oftentimes, no offense, older people and older generations try to assume what the youth wants. They just make guesses, and they're like, oh, this is what Gen Z wants, this is what blah, blah, blah wants, without yes, I'm going to answer, I swear. Without actually, they just assume. And I think that is extremely harmful because with anything in life, you can't just you can't read people's minds. You can't just assume. So I'm happy that you asked that question. And I think, sorry for my roundabout answer, but I think that the answer would be to keep doing this. I think this is an amazing idea, and I'm so thankful that I can be a part of it because, as you were asking earlier, sometimes young people are not taken seriously. So I'm excited that you're taking us seriously and giving us a chance and actually listening and doing the Q&A portion. I think is an absolutely great idea. If there's like a policy that you guys want to hear our opinions on, locally, nationally, I'm so excited to talk about it, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity.
For my part here, yeah, I really like the Joe Biden Olivia Rodrigo TikToks. I don't know, but I'd rather have them actually Biden and Olivia come see me in person. That's a separate conversation. You know, getting back to the taken seriously question, I personally have not had an issue with being taken seriously, and I think it is attributed to a couple things. One is that in my experience, policymakers are actually quite excited when they do hear from youth. They genuinely, for both political and personal reasons, want to hear from young people. They just have no idea how to like find them, and so they're excited when they do show up in a community chamber or do show up in a legislative office. But that's just been me. When I counsel young people on how to, talk to policymakers and persuade them and work with them, I basically tell them a couple things. One, be like over informed, like be better than the professional lobbyists and know more than them, and you will usually actually have great persuasive effect with policymakers when you are, very well informed about the issue because they assume you're not. Also, use your age. I mean, it's not even though you should be treated as an equal, use your age and show that you have this different perspective on the issue that is valuable and that's needed and that the policymakers should pay attention to. I also tell them just to be just the right amount of annoying. They should be calling or emailing or meeting with people just enough to annoy them into action, but not enough to get, blocked. So I find that has been kind of effective in getting there. In terms of engaging my friends and family in all this kind of stuff, I say a couple things. One, I lay out for them very much an A and B situation where I say, what we can see here is that as a result of your decision or as a result of someone's decision, this policy or this part of your life is substantively different than it would have been otherwise. The two parties aren't the same. Not voting and voting are not the same. These are binary options in many ways. And so what you do actually does make a difference. And I can show you tangibly what that impact is. When I'm able to articulate that, that usually tends to be much better. I also tell them to really try and get involved institutionally. Like, I forget who was talking about this, but in terms of reaching out for coffee and actually engaging and talking with the members the people who make up the institution and getting involved with the institution is a great way to have way more impact and leverage your impact more than you would think. So I tell people always cold email, always cold call. This is going to pay dividends for you. I also, for young people, tell them to focus on state and local. So many young people got involved in 2016 as a result of Trump, and they looked federal and they've stayed looking federal. And in my opinion, more of the interesting stuff and more of the real stuff is happening at the state and local level. That's where they can make the impact on many of the issues they care about. So I tell them to reorient where they're looking. In terms of how CityClub can better engage young people, one, are voting board seats for young people. It doesn't have to be us four, but voting board seats for people under 25. That's and full capacity and invitations and all that. Two, are hosting youth-oriented events. Again, you have to meet them where they're at. So, this is off the top of my head, but like, have an event at a school, or an assembly, or whatever else it might be. Bring in some high-level policymakers, maybe some statewide officials, get Bob Ferguson or whoever, and actually have them speak to young people and hear from young people. And I think that's actually, again, meeting them where they are is going to be how you're going to get there. Because right now, the barriers of driving into Seattle at night to go here at a cocktail from people you don't really know is not going to be the most compelling pitch and way to reach young people. I'd also say pitch young people to other fellow nonprofits, like we've talked about tonight. Seattle City Club and its board members and its staff have relationships to other nonprofits. So they should be, spreading the gospel after tonight and saying, hey, what we heard from these 4 people was that, young people are integral to actually the proper and full functioning of our organization in terms of mitigating risks and seizing opportunities. You guys should do this. This is what we've heard. The last thing I'd say is ask the 4 of us. We're going to be here hopefully for the long term in terms of helping advise City Club. So if there is an operational decision being made, if there's an institutional decision being made, that maybe you don't at first think about youth, ask the youth what they think, and they will generally have a interesting or worthwhile perspective to hear, even if it doesn't directly correlate to like youth issues. And on that subject, for anyone in the audience, if you are like go away from tonight saying, hey, I understand why it's so important that we get young people engaged, but like I don't know how for like my organization, or I don't know, what the next steps are, ask the 4 of us. Really send an email. Well, yeah, at least you can send one to me. I don't want to put the other 3 on the spot. But like, go up in person or send an email and ask. You're like, here's what the position I'm in. How can I get young people engaged? And I know we will be excited to help. So that's all.
All right, let's do one more question, and then we're going to do a group activity.
Alicia, do you mind if I add one more thing based off what Kellen just said? So if you want to help me spread the gospel of PCOs, what I would really appreciate is if you have a student a kid that is in school, or if you are involved in the school that you went to, or if you are involved in schools in any way. We're looking to partner with some civic educators. We already have partnered with a variety, and we have about 500 kids going through the pilot, and we're going to gather some great feedback before the election. So we're going to have, amazing content ready for teachers to use in September, October, November. But if you know any teachers that want to be involved in this project, I would love to talk to you, and I think Alicia can connect me with whoever is interested.
So I wanted to ask the 4 of you about, besides increasing youth engagement, specifically the problem of getting adults to take youth in politics more seriously. And here's the problem. I think there's a lot of encouragement of youth engagement in civics. That's not, nobody's seriously objecting to like 14 and 17-year-olds becoming more politically informed. But I can tell you there's a lot of people, overwhelming majority of people who think like 14 to 17-year-olds shouldn't be taken too seriously. Still some people say 18 to 25-year-olds shouldn't be taken seriously, and some of it extend all the way up to 30. And I'm trying to think of ways to, even people who encourage kids' involvement at like 14 to 17, it's like in preparation to be taken seriously someday, but not necessarily to be taken seriously now. And I'm wondering because I think even, how could we get people to accept there's sort of an uncomfortable truth that I think a lot of adults don't accept, which is once you're like 14 to 17, you can articulate you can make an argument and you can have a command of the facts, which is the same as or better than a lot of the adults on that topic. And I think that a lot of adults, even ones who encourage youth engagement, haven't really wrapped their heads around the fact that even the ones under 18 might in some ways have more of a command of certain issues than they do. And I was wondering if we could brainstorm any ways to help people fix that. So I'll throw out one kind of left field idea, essentially like an essay contest, but where some of the youth submit essays, some adults submit essays, and you take the names and the ages off, and you essentially ask people to look at them and see, which ones do you think are the most persuasive. And then you do this enough times, you have this like blinding flash where you realize, oh, I can't tell who the kids are. They are making their points just as well as the adults. Like, when the host Alicia said that, when the first time she was reading Kellyanna's Twitter, she thought she was 30 years old. There's a point there that I think there's a very deep truth there that we shouldn't just hustle past, which is that if you have anonymized what somebody is saying, so you don't know in advance if they're a kid or an adult, many times you cannot tell. So that would be one way to get people to take youth and politics more seriously. But what else would you guys suggest? And I'm not talking about specifically just increasing youth engagement, but specifically getting adults to wrap their heads around the idea that, oh, the young people actually are just as good at command of these issues as we do.
Okay, so I am going to call an audible because that is a meaty question, and we have to get ready to wrap up. But the great thing about what we do here is that we take intermission so that you can talk to one another during the break and get a better answer. So that is a meaty question. I would like for you guys to respond to it later after thinking about it a little bit. But as we get ready to wrap up, here is the group activity. You all should have had a little piece of green folded paper on your seat. And I would like for you to raise your hand if your respective organization that you work for, volunteer for, has a youth rep with a voting position. Well, mine does now. So on that card that you have, there's a commitment form there. And so I'm hoping that after what you've heard today and what you're going to think about later is for you to fill out and list 3 ideas on how to involve youth in your organization. So here is the...
And it can't just be a social media intern role. It has to be substantive.
See, that's why they're in charge. So write those down. Now, of course, you can take this home with you. However, if you take a photo of it and email it back to us, there might be a prize at the next Civic cocktail. Plus, we want to take those ideas, gather them, and share them with the council. So with that, I'm going to leave you guys to do a final 30-second closing remark that you want to make. Either you want to like challenge the audience, not just us here, but those that are also going to be watching as well. What is that challenge you want to issue to us?
The challenge that I would say to anybody really is to have the courage to be disliked. I think that can be really scary at first. I know that when I first started speaking out, having any opinion in general is scary, regardless of what your opinions are, regardless if I disagree with you or not. As I said earlier, I don't want everybody to think the same as me. I just want people to think. And I think that's very scary, especially when you're outspoken, especially when those around you in your community disagree with you. Speaking out about your opinions can be very difficult, but have that courage to be disliked, have that courage to have a conversation, and have that courage to speak out.
Brooke?
Easier said than done, but grow some thick skin and have this hard talks. At the end of the day, we're all human. We want what's best for our respective organization, city, whatever. And I guess just acknowledge that with the other person and don't be afraid to have those talks and don't take it too personal if someone gets angry, just, yeah.
Chirag?
I would say that, we all have a role to play in our future, and coming tonight is definitely a great first step, and hopefully you can support all of our projects that we're working on, but you guys also know people that are working on some amazing projects in your own community, so just taking the next step to support them and change the future.
Awesome. And Kellen?
I'm a field director at Hoard, so we're going to go with the relational organizing approach. Which is after this talk, go talk to 3 family, friends, colleagues, whomever, and make a case to them for why they should get young people involved in their work based on what you've heard tonight about mitigating risk, about seizing opportunity, about taking actionable steps, about engaging them structurally in the work that they do. You can make a case for it, hopefully, based on what you've heard tonight. And if you tell 3 people and they tell 3 people and so on, before long, we're going to have young people getting reached out to by organizations and young people proactively reaching out to organizations and really kind of making a better future where there's more inclusive voices in decisions and in the public, private, nonprofit sector. So as a plug, get my email from Alicia if you want, or add me on LinkedIn. Always trying to get those 500 connections. I've been working hard at that. So anyway, it was good talking to you all, and good luck in getting youth engaged.
Thank you, Kellen. So Kellen, Brooke, Kellyanna, Chirag, thank you so much. I mean, personally, thank you, because like I said, I just kind of, two of you reached out by yourselves. The other two, I just kind of pulled into this and said, can we do this? And you said, sure. So thank you, and I am so looking forward to your input and your feedback on what we do at CityClub and the Debate Coalition, because we look forward to also having you involved in our statewide debates later this year. And with that, we will be right back. We're going to take a short break and come back and talk with City Year Seattle and talk about youth service. So we'll be right back. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our youth service conversation. We just had an amazing panel with our civically engaged youth council. Let's give them another round of applause. I know I left inspired. I left it feeling older than I am, because I'm like, I wasn't doing any of that at their age, and I don't want to do it now. So, but I feel really good about our future and what's coming up with leadership from them. So the next conversation we're going to have is about youth service, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this, it's a little personal, is because once upon a time I worked for City Year as a major donor person, and I couldn't do it. But I like corporate. I like corporate. It wasn't with her. But, you know, that was my first foray into what youth service was and learning what AmeriCorps was about and how that related to City Year. And I really just wanted to be able to have a conversation about it because, you know, I think that's part of civic engagement, number one. And two, that there are challenges in trying to get our young people to be able to do the kind of service that we really do need. So with that, I'll introduce Tarra Mitchell, who is the executive director. What is you got a whole title.
A whole thing.
A whole title.
Executive Director, Senior Vice President of City Year Seattle / King County.
So again, you were not there when I was there.
I was not.
So, but tell us more about how you ended up in this role and kind of what your background was that led you into it.
Yeah, so all over the place doing all of the things, a bit of a Forrest Gump life, so we'll cut out a lot of the running in the fields part, but down to the really good part. I been in education for a bit, serving as building leader, came to Seattle Public Schools as an elementary school principal in 2016 to a school in West Seattle, Title I school, Rocks Hill Elementary, and there was a lot of extra resources and people and all sorts, one of them being all these, what I saw as kids in red jackets, and I was like, who are these people? Why are they here? And these scores, student achievement scores don't warrant anymore, blah, blah, blah. And the executive director at the time was like, no, this thing really matters. And he explained what AmeriCorps was to me, and he explained what City Year was to me. And the part about leadership that feeds my soul is growing people and launching people. And so I thought, these are people. They could be grown, they could be launched, they could be a part of this program that we've got going on here. And over the next, I think I was there 4 or 5 years at Rocks Hill, it became like a part of the school. I really began to understand and believe in the power of this reciprocal relationship between 18 to 24-year-olds coming to serve in local communities, to then learn about themselves, learn about community, to then go back to their home communities, because at the time it was a lot of kids from Connecticut that were coming out here, right? And then going back to those communities, serving in law, going into law or whatever their thing was, and then being able to break down barriers of access for young people like the kids they served, but in these other communities. So I felt like it was my megalomaniac mind. I was like, we could change the world if I go out and just basically indoctrinate all these 18 to 24-year-olds to believe in the power of Black and brown communities and, go out here and just, change it out here. And so that's how I got it. And it just one cohort at a time. And then I started saying, well, we're not doing the things we need to do in order to raise all the money we need. So I need you to start bringing people to my school. And so then they started coming to my school, and one thing after another. And then I served on the board. And then my daughter went and did City Year in LA, of course, because why do it at home, right here at home? That's another thing. And then the executive director was getting ready to leave and said, I'm going to leave as a board member. And I was devastated and was like, what am I going to do? No one's going to have me on a board. I'm now a director of special education in Seattle Public Schools. And he said, what if it's you? And it took a lot of conversation and a lot of stuff. And it's, like, I think, an example of how would we pour into people, what a difference it can make. And so I just, for the first time in my long life, I thought, what if I don't tell myself no this time? Yeah. What if I let other people tell me no? And there's a lot of mediocre people out here with really good jobs, and I'm a little bit more than mediocre. So I'm going out here and get this thing, and I did. And so here I sit. Haven't got that thing.
That's what I'm talking about. So it's fun, I think I've noticed at least twice a day, maybe over the past few weeks, the City Year commercial. I've been seeing it on TV, and it's like, you see them, but do you see you? So going back to what you were saying about learning more about what City Year is and what AmeriCorps is, can you explain to the average person,
the average Joe on the street,
how they're separate, but also how they're together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So AmeriCorps, first off, as a former always a mathematician, former math teacher, AmeriCorps is like the big circle, and City Year is a small circle inside of the big circle, if you're thinking about Venn diagrams, fully enclosed in AmeriCorps. And AmeriCorps is like Peace Corps in America, for those of you who grew up with that kind of a thing. It's an opportunity for 18 to 24-year-old people to serve a year of service in communities. And AmeriCorps does all sorts: forestry, medical, dental, like all the things you can imagine. City Year is an organization that provides support in schools to nationally our model is 3rd through 10th grade, to support language arts, math, and social emotional learning for students, again, 3rd through 10th grade. Our operating belief is that if we can provide those additional supports to schools and provide students with near peers, young people like them near their age, to keep them engaged and connected in school, we will increase the graduation rates amongst schools that have historically low graduation rates. Mm-hmm. So that's the work that we're doing, and that's what we do for civic engagement. That's the engagement we're doing.
And we've had a couple of education type civic cocktails over the past year and a half, talking about, I think Washington State was 48th out of 50. And
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. What schools? How many AmeriCorps members do you have this school year, and which schools are they at?
That's a tender spot. We do not have near enough AmeriCorps members this year. So we've gone up. We've had as much as 38 Corps members this year. We're at 7 schools this year: Southeast and Southwest Seattle, South Shore K-8. Aki Karosi Middle School, Denny Middle School, Rising Star Elementary School, Concord Elementary School, What am I miss? Say. Thorndike Elementary School in Tukwila, our first time foraying into Tukwila. Thank you. That's my community partnership manager back there, Casey, who's
Hey, Casey.
working on a local recruitment strategy, and our civic engagement core member, Kiana, back there, who's come to do this with me today as well.
So let's talk about that, because one of the things I remember when I was at City Year, one of my favorite things, in being part of the Red Jacket Society and taking AmeriCorps members to a Red Jacket Society member's house for a meal, and and I didn't realize until the first time I did it that was like the best meal that a lot of them would get, because I started to learn, like, oh my God, these kids really do get a stipend, and there's not enough money left over, once they have to pay for housing and things like that. So I really enjoyed being able to do that for them.
Yeah.
But with that being said, that is a lower number than what I remember when I was
It's
there.
a distinctly lower
It's
number.
distinctly lower, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation, is because we know the value of what City Year is doing, what the AmeriCorps members are doing in these schools.
Yes.
But one of the things that was really hard, and it sounds like it's still that way, is trying to secure housing.
So part of it is trying to secure housing, absolutely. Like, we all know the housing situation in our area is straight ridiculous, whether you're from here or you're not. And part of what we need to do is to find solutions for housing. If we want people to come and do this type of work, if we want people to be in our city at all, I couldn't afford to live down the street from Rocks Hill when I was an elementary school principal. Like, I couldn't work in my own community that I was serving, let alone these core members. Also, ways in which we're trying to address those problems, because I'm trying to stay in my lane. I don't know housing. I don't know all of those things and how to do those things. There's somebody that knows somebody and knows the guy, maybe in this audience, that can get that solution. If you are that person that knows the guy, talk to me, please, before we get done. But another way in which we're trying to solve that is like, okay, what if we remove housing as a thing? So like I said before, a lot of who we used to get was kids from Connecticut taking a gap year who had access to these pathways, and this was an established thing to do and a way you didn't have to leave the country. And post-COVID, what we're finding is people are not traveling or sending kids away anymore, and young people are not wanting to go away from family anymore. But because we used to get 90 to 100 people from across the nation as a destination city, we've not done our local marketing plan in the ways and increased our footprint here locally. But this is a viable thing. If you are a parent, a caregiver, a guardian, and you've got a young person who's graduated high school, graduated community college, graduated college, and they're not quite sure what to do next, like, you don't need to waste my money. You could be right here, right? You don't have to go do the next thing. Everybody's not ready to go do the next thing yet. You don't have to go do the next thing, but you've got to do something, right? We don't want to see them sitting in the same spot when we come home from work. So you got to do something. And the something that you do can be serving at the middle school you went to, serving at the elementary school you went to. If your family is able to still provide you the same room you were in and your pride will allow you to stay in that space, then this becomes a completely different thing. This is money that you get to stash, that you get to put away, right? This is a scholarship at the end that can be used for a trade school or university, community college. This is stacking some racks. This is getting in front of spaces. So you graciously provided opportunity for AmeriCorps members to be able to come to these meetings. You're a 19-year-old kid and you come here and I take you around and introduce you to all of these people. Now you're in circles that you would have not had access at before. Right? And we've got board members and lawyers and this, that, and the third. And we're using this formalized, accepted way of community service and civic service, because I will say this, civic engagement and community engagement exists in Black and brown communities already. Yeah. Like, this is not they don't need me to come in with City Year to teach their babies how to serve in community. That's what the community has been doing to survive, right? saying, how do we give them access to more formalized ways of engagement that can help scoot them a little further down the road a little bit quicker.
Yeah, so City Club has partnered with City Year, because we like the word city in Seattle. Because again, we want to be able to have those AmeriCorps members be able to come here and civically engage, and just because again, for you and youth, it's gonna be like, oh, it's just a thing I do, but this could be something that they actually look forward to and get a decent snack. So this is the uncomfortable question, which is, I think people know they hear the word stipend and that they don't make that much. And I think the other thing that surprised me was that what they make is so low that they actually qualify for
SNAP benefits.
Yeah. And I was stunned by that too. So I think to drive it home, what are they getting from a stipend? I mean, I think we need to paint that picture to go, what is that?
Okay, it's $25,000 for the year. They do 1,700 hours in 10 months in schools. They're working 10 hours a day. They're at the school before teachers. They're there after. They are there before, 7 o'clock, some schools, 7:30. They're doing a morning circle, like getting oriented with themselves. They do morning greeting out front to welcome the students to the building. Then they're doing small group instruction. They're covering lunch recesses. They're doing more small group instruction. They're doing after school learning support. Then they're doing whatever lesson planning they need to do to prep for the next day. And then once a week, for two days out of every month, we're providing professional development as well. So we're pouring into these young people. What's your life plan? It's called a LACY plan, Life After City Year, Leadership After City Year. What are you doing, Sugar Dumpling? What are you trying to do? You want to go to college? Let's figure out how to do these applications. You want to go to trade school? Let's figure out what those things are. You don't know what you want to do? Let's take some inventories. Also, what's happening? Why does City Year even need to exist in Seattle? Oh, because redlining. Why? Because racism, because white supremacy. And so what does that mean? How does that play out? What's that gonna mean for you and the rest of your life, right? And just a little bit of indoctrination that we do there. And also, what are ways in which you need to be involved in community? Who are you as a person? All this stuff, we graduate kids from high school and we expect for them to know the rest of their life. And some people get it like that. I didn't get it like that. And I think City Year is a spot, and AmeriCorps in general. Obviously, I'm rooting for City Year, but AmeriCorps in general is a spot if you don't know the next step. If you're a young person and you want to do something meaningful, you want to do something in your community or in a local community, and you're not quite sure. I don't know if I want to go to school to be a teacher and spend the 4 years. I don't know. I don't know if I want to go be a plumber, or I just don't even, do I want to even live in Seattle? Do I want to move somewhere? I don't know. You can do something for a year and it's not stagnant. It moves you further down the road. You can learn some stuff to get it together. I feel like when I say that my leadership passion is growing people, this is the growing the 18 to 24-year-old. It's the back in the, I'm telling myself a little bit, back in the day, we used to have chain link fences, not these nice boarded fences that people have now. And you used to have chain link fences. Sometimes it'd be a little tall, and sometimes it'd be like raggedy on the top. And then you'd have to help your friends get over because you were most likely go into a space you had no business being in. And you would do your hands like this. And then your friend will put their foot right here, and then you'd heist them up over top of the fence, right? And I feel like that's what I'm supposed to do, is to put my hands down and let people put their foot in there and then just heist them over.
We'll take audience questions in just a moment, so get them ready. So let me ask you this. So of the number of folks that you have for this year. Are any of them local, or do they all do the majority tend to come from somewhere else?
Yeah, so it's still a majority elsewhere, but we have more local people than we've had in quite a while. And Casey's whole work is local recruitment. Our 5-year goal, I'd love to see 75% or more as local people. I think there's too many advantages that come from accessing white institutional systems from serving in city year that access has been denied to Black and brown children. We serve these communities, but then those same communities don't have access to use this to move forward. It doesn't sit right with me. So my goal is to create these pathways for young people to be able to come out of the schools we serve and serve in city year, and then launch into some meaningful things after that.
You mentioned local recruitment in general, even local recruitment. What does that look like? What is recruiting? Are you in the schools?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not anywhere. Don't get me lying. I'm not anywhere. I'm in stuff like this, trying to get cases. The collective we, the royal we is, the royal we is at high schools, at community colleges, at local community events, in spaces where 18 to 24-year-old people are.
Yeah.
Right? We have a national recruitment model that is at universities here in the area, all the way through, like nationwide. But locally, Casey is at the schools in the King and Snohomish County, a little bit in Pierce County, and just trying to go where the people are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as with any nonprofit, you're like, how are you getting funded? So I know that the AmeriCorps members get the stipend, and that's federal.
That's federal dollars that happens. We have some dollars that are coming in with school partnerships, and as you can imagine, those pieces are risky right now with school districts in the current fiscal situations that they're in. I mean, as the spirit moves you, we'll be funded by the people who bring dollars to us. We have a private revenue goal as well, and so we are always looking for community partnerships with organizations and individuals and foundations that are driven by the same work that we are. And please know, I will start really high because it's not on me to tell you what your limit for giving is. So we're just looking to grow those partnerships across the board, right?
Yeah. So tell us about Ripples of Hope. Tell.
Ripples of Hope is our annual gala that's not a gala. So we used to do a big gala.
Yes.
And now we do a service project. May 18th, down at the Fisher Pavilion. And anybody who would like to come, let me know. I will get you a ticket. It's no problem. And you can bring a friend as well. And we come, it's our fundraising thing. So we do a formal ask, a little bit of a program, get to know some of our core members, what's the work that we do. And then all together, every single body, like from my mom to my grandchildren, we're present all together, putting together summer kits for kids. So we'll be putting together collectively 3,000 summer kits, and then they'll leave there, they'll go in a van or a truck, and on that Monday, we will take them to the schools, and every student in schools that we serve will get one.
Oh, wow. Is this in addition to the day of service you guys do for MLK?
And that's in addition to the day of service that we do at MLK, and Kiana and her team are actually the people who, raise your hand, Kiana, second-year core members. So we have a team called a Civic Engagement Team, and it's second-year core members that specifically select to work with a staff member to work within community different engagement opportunities for service. So the big one they do is the MLK Day of Service as a day on for us. We take over a school. This year we took over Denny Middle School in West Seattle. We did murals, we did outside, we did inside. How many people were there? Do you remember, Kiana? I think it was like 150 or something like that.
Let's go with that.
We'll go. It was packed. It was absolutely packed. And and it's a no-cost event that is not a fundraiser, so we don't do an ask or anything. And that's every year on MLK Day. Yeah.
Did we have an audience question? So you can go over here.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Lauren McGowan. I'm the executive director of List Puget Sound. I'm a proud AmeriCorps alum who moved here from Connecticut 20 years ago. But it's okay. It's okay, right? Like, here I am.
Still serving in community.
I'm
Thank
still
you.
serving in community. And I love what you're doing and so impressed with how the organization has grown under your leadership. I'm curious about what policy changes we need at the local, state, and federal level to make service stronger, to make sure we are recruiting more people from the community, and to improve our overall outcomes.
What?
You just made her too happy. Okay.
Okay. Policy changes that need to happen. I'm going to be honest with you. I was making all those noises because I was like, no, they did not ask me these kinds of questions. That's not what okay. Policy is not my strength. I actually have a meeting with a person about policy. It's my learning edge about what are the policies that are happening at the city and state level that we could use our influence to help shift. Coming from the school space, that's really where my thinking about policy has been. And I've intentionally, because I've only been in this role 2 years, intentionally been trying to stay out of that because I want to stay in my lane, right? I have really strong opinions about educational policy, and I don't think it's appropriate for me now as a leader in a nonprofit to bring my principal mind to that. But the fact that I love my job, I love and I believe in this organization, but the fact that there are schools in Seattle Public Schools that must have us in order to move the work forward for children is heartbreaking to me. The fact that we have schools that need City Year and need the services that we provide that don't have dollars to fund it, and in this area is heartbreaking to me. As that part's actually disgusting to me. Like, there's just so many dollars available in this region and it's not in the right spaces. Why should a school have to make an individual decision about, like, on a school budget, partnering with City Year is a huge decision. On a district budget, it's, especially at a large district, it's coffee budget, right? At a state level, it's negligible. And so how do we move some of these large systems of support out of school principal hands and orient them in the right spaces? That's the change I think needs to happen. What policy that is or where that lives, I don't know. And I do think that the city levy works to do some of that, but then it's still operating within the system, right? And because white supremacy, like, it always autocorrects, right? And even as we try to do these innovative things to shift the stuff, then the system gets back systemy, and now we're back in the same struggle with the same barriers. So yeah, how do we first not need City Year? That would be the very first thing. How do you not need anything like this, reading partners or anybody to come in to provide additional supports? How do we have fully funded daggone public schools that people can, no matter where you live, you can send your baby to school, know they're gonna get the same quality education as somebody else down the street or up the hill or whatever? That would be priority one. Next would be, if we're gonna have these support systems, how do we make them accessible to the spaces that need them? You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes. And that's taking me back to when you talk about policy, and I think about housing and seeing Lauren, what it reminded me of is next month there's Affordable Housing Awareness Week. And, when I was, talking with my teammate about this earlier, and I was like, if we were to do a conversation around this, what does it look like? And who do we involve? And I know, LISC is involved, and we're looking at Housing Consortium as well to kind of put something together. But one of the things I thought about as we talked about it was when people say, oh, affordable housing is for, a certain type of person. But then it goes back to service. again, it's how do you maintain that? How do you know that you need this level of service in your communities, but yet not talk about how it connects to just their everyday living to be able to come and do that work? Yeah.
And it's even if, so we were talking earlier, there's somebody who's trying to come from way south, 50 miles south, would like to do this. That's still local, but far enough away that could be a barrier. But moving here is not an option, right? And so what is it? Also, what does it look like for us to get more holistic? So I was talking with another community organization that was trying to build like a community center that had some housing in it, and I'm just wild and reckless with my mouth. I'm like, hey, yo, if you got an extra spot, I got some core members that could live there, and then we do tutoring after service and blah blah blah. And they're like, you know what? That sounds pretty cool. Like if you've got this space that's gonna have housing there and all-inclusive services, and what if your child could just come home to the apartment complex and do their after-school learning there, and then the core is there and a team is already there living and they do that there, and that's how they get their housing, and then they're not at the school all those hours, but they're still providing the services. Like, how do we start? I cannot solve housing, right? But somebody is solving housing, and I can solve another problem they have. And by plugging into that, then we can collectively solve these other pieces. And yeah.
I think that's the key word, is collectively, right? And especially coming out the pandemic as a nonprofit ourselves, it's like, it's not so much about being transactional in your partnerships or your relationships, but it's becoming more interpersonal and making it being a relationship.
Yes.
Because that's what it really should be about, and pooling our resources together.
Yes. And it has to be authentic, right?
Yeah.
It has to be authentic relationships. So I think about us and even us having this conversation, the young people that you brought in, it got me to thinking. I will say, I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm not writing anything on that daggone paper. The whole organization is about kids and young people, but also, where is the space that young people need to have conversation, need to bring more voice in, right? And so I'm here, I'm learning in this way. You're opening this space up for core members and staff to be able to get civically engaged. They're gonna be connecting with different people that are part of the in and out part of your community, but also the stable part of your community. Like that authentic relationship that you're creating in this space already is spiraling that thing and kind of stirring that soup up a little bit.
I try. My board helps me too, though. Thank you, guys and ladies. So one thing just came to mind to me. Do you guys, it's talking about collaboration, do you guys still have space or do things at Seattle Center?
So we were just at, the Ripples of Hope will be at Seattle Center at the Fisher Pavilion. We used to do our professional development up there by the Center School. And Casey was just up at the Center School today talking with
Dr. Casey.
Dr. Barbara Casey, yes. And so we do not use that rental space anymore. We're down at El Centra in Beacon Hill. And our new offices are in Georgetown Square. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just remember being at the Armory.
Yes, we used to be at the Armory.
Yeah.
We used to take over the Armory. Absolutely. Absolutely. But we're down in we're over in Beacon Hill, at, not far from, right across the street from the Red Apple.
Okay, I might come check out the new space.
Oh, you got to come out and check out the new space. Georgetown Square, attached to the Seattle Design Center. Come on down. Suite 292.
So I'll let you have the final word on this conversation. What do you want to leave with those here, those that are going to be watching later, whether it's a request, a challenge, a deep thought? What do you want to leave them with, especially in regards to the importance of youth service?
Okay, I got a couple of deep thoughts.
Go for it.
Okay, first deep thought is really proud and honored to be after the group you had earlier. Those young people were so powerful, and I took notes and just thank you to them. So just that one thought.
Yeah.
Shout them out. Also, I feel reaffirmed about the importance of this work of working with young people. Yeah. And then my call to action, a couple different things. One So my word for this year is to do, it's not and, but it's to do with the and space. I'm not gonna give out my word for free, but anyway, it's to do with the and space, right? So it makes me think about the young people you had and their civic mindedness towards political spaces, and this work I'm doing about civic mindedness of serving in community, and just this thinking about the and space of that. So if you know an 18 to 25-year-old that is looking to serve, and it's not the political spaces for them and us, right? And so we're gonna have some materials for you. Please feel free to take those into spaces where 18 to 25-year-olds live, please. And then the last bit is, please let me know if you would like to come to our Ripples of Hope. Definitely available to for, give out tickets for attendance. Don't tell my development staff. And we'd love to see you. And I'd love to see people there serving together in community. Get re-engaged with us, and think about if partnering with us in a financial way makes sense for you and for your family. And I'd like to engage in that conversation as well.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
you.
Big round of applause for Tarra, please. Again, this was such an impactful, they're all impactful conversations, right? But there's something when you see young people putting us in our place. I'm like, okay, I feel better about this. So thank you, Youth Council leadership. Thank you, Tarra, for being here. Thank you all for being here, and those who are going to be watching. And also a big thank you to our presenting sponsor, Comcast, for making this all possible. There is an evaluation form you're going to get, so please fill that out. We really do look at those and make note. And next month's Civic Cocktail will be right back here on May Day, May 1st, yeah. So we'll be here, and it is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we are going to have a couple of panels dealing with mental health. So one of the things that my friend Richard Taylor, who will be here next month talking about this, the one thing that he has said to me that has always stuck, he says, everyone has a mental health. We all have a physical health, and we all have a mental health. So that way, not to stigmatize what it means when someone starts to talk about mental health, because we all have one. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you to my team at CityClub. Thank you to Bermudez Media. Thank you all for being here today and giving us your evening. And we'll see you next month.